morning, guys. Back to it again on the old 72 Ford pickup. Assembly time. We just put the intake manifold up after letting our RTV silicone solidify. This is the type of RTV we did use. It's a Motorcraft silicone. It says it is used on 7.3 liter diesel engines. Except for this one, it's going on a 6.4 liter gasoline engine. But from what I've read, it should work better than the RTV you get at Napa or wherever you get your RTV at. Expensive stuff, 21 bucks a bottle. So expect that to pay if you got a project like this on your hands. What you need to do first though is make sure everything is nice and clean, and everything, the gasket mating surface is especially nice and clean, and you want to have, it's kind of like a surgeon's touch when you do this stuff. Okay, so next on your agenda, what you want to plan for is the valve train. Like I said before, I was telling someone this, Ford uses a solid rocker arm design, which you can see right here. You got the springs and then your rocker arms for your valves and your push tubes. Chevrolet, whereas they use a single individual rocker arm for each, and it's got a bolt right there on both of them. Dodge, on the other hand, they use a single, like the Ford's, a straight through rocker arm design, but in some cases they also use an individual screw stud. Just depends on what motor you go through from what Dodge has. But for this Ford, you got to be careful, especially with your rocker arms when you tighten them up. Like right here in this baggie are my rocker arm studs, or my rocker arm bolts, and I'll show you what I mean, why you need to be careful. That one's an ordinary bolt for a rocker arm. You can see no differences really in it, just a regular old bolt for you. Okay, well let's take out a different one and I'll show you what's the difference. This one, do you notice any difference at all? Same size pretty much, a little bit longer, not too bad, but what's the difference, you may ask? Well, right where I have my thumb here, there's a little groove that you need to be especially careful for that these don't have. This is like a shoulder that they put. This is a special bolt for this rocker arm. And where this bolt goes is right there, where it has the oil hole. That's how your rocker arm gets oil to all 10, or how many we got here? 8. All 8 of them. Yeah, all 8 valves. That's how your rocker arm gets oiled, all 8 of them. Sorry, I can't count today. Same way on this head, except for your oil hole is positioned on this one instead of being on that hole back there. It's on this position because your heads are flipped around, of course. But that's what you need to watch out for when putting the Ford rocker arms on. As well as when you took it apart, I'm hoping that you guys have organized your push tubes in the exact same way they came out of the vehicle, because they are now worn that way to the lifters and as well as the rocker arms. So make sure that you have them organized in some sort of fashion. I got a piece of cardboard that I just put holes in, and that's how I'm keeping them organized. When you put them back in, if they're kind of oily and they kind of got like a thick like sludge on them, clean them up before you put them in, especially on the tips, because you don't want them sliding too much. And if you have like a special compound you can use, like my Edelbrock cam kit came with a special break-in compound. This stuff, you want to open it up and you can put it on the tips of the rocker arm. I'm not going to do that though, because it's already been worn in for a couple of miles that I have, but a little lubrication never hurts to put on those rocker arms so they're not dry when you start them up and you don't get a valve slap or you know, just a nice little tick tick tick, which you don't want. Makes you all freaked out and paranoid. But anyway, you'll want to do the valve tray next. After the valve train, you can start, you can stab the distributor, or you can start putting your carburetor on. Probably start with the distributor first though. So let's put the valves on and we'll show you how it looks after that. Okay, and that's how it looks with your push tubes put in on all of them. Now, next step we're going to put the rocker arms on, of course, but you need to be careful too, is because they have this baffle that goes on them, kind of like a deterrent when you put them on here, and it goes on a specific way to where it'll line up with the bolt holes here. And I'll try and fish it on here, show you how it goes on, just like that. And what that does, it keeps oil directed in the right direction. It needs to flow to properly lube the upper valve train. Now, a lot of people I know have watched a couple of videos on YouTube, and they've seen these FE Fords run without the valve covers, and you get the comments like, why is he running them without the valve covers? He's stupid, he's going to get oil all over the place. Well, there's difference to it, and I'll tell you why you can run FEs without the valve covers. For one, it's the oiling system setup. Since the FEs use the rail type rocker arm instead of individuals like Chevrolet do, they oil through a specific oil gallery passage. So most of the flow of oil, once it comes past this hole right here, it doesn't squirt out that way and lube the valve cover and all that good stuff that way, the valves and everything. Instead, it travels through a passage on the rocker arm and lubes up every individual rocker arm and the valve, the rocker stem itself, I guess you could call it. We'll call it the rocker arm stem here, which would be all that. So it lubes all that instead of squirting it out at about 20 psi or whatever psi it's going at. And that's how come you can run a Ford without the valve covers. Chevrolet uses the idea where they can open up each individual push tube with a little hole, and it lubes whichever, the valve and the rocker arm at the same time. Well, the Ford is quite different with their oiling passages. Dodge has kind of used also the Ford style where they can run the oil on the single on that rocker arm stem, and sometimes they use like Chevrolet and they have a bored open hole to where it's lubing each and every valve tip and rocker arm and push tube at the same time. So that's how you can run a Ford without basically your valve covers and not worry about getting oil up here or down there or wherever. It don't matter. So next step, of course, is to put on your rocker arm. Now, I know for that passenger side I'll use this one because I remember taking off that one, so we'll go from there. Okay, we got the push tubes and the rocker arms put on, torqued them to specs, did the torque process through the torque process, and that's how they look with the rocker arm, the baffle, and the push tubes. So next step is your valve covers. Make sure you get any of the old valve cover gasket if you got any. Like I got some right there that I'll have to take off before sealing it again. But that's your next step, and then we can move on to the distribution to the distributor. So then we get the valve covers on and we'll go from there. Okay, we got the valve covers on now. Now it's time to stab that distributor. Now it's a little bit difficult to do, but we're going to try it and hopefully we get it. So we'll put the spark plug in number one, and then we'll stick the distributor back down. Problem is with the distributor is trying to get that little ring tooth gear, and at the end of this there's a little 6-point spline in there that it has to go into at the same time without messing up your rotor. So we're going to try and do that. Hopefully we can do it first time. Wish me luck.